Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and another movie review. Today we will pick up with Apex. I just watched it on Netflix. You know how we do these reviews. If you've not seen one, I will give you the overview that is provided by Google, along with any ratings by Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb, or any other websites that provide them. Give you my general impressions, overall thoughts. I will then grade it on the American school system structure, A being well done, B being entertaining, C being whatever, D being off-putting, and then F being I turned off the video but still wanted to make some sort of review or commentary. And so, Apex is rated R. It was released in 2026. It is labeled an action/thriller movie, and it has a runtime of 1 hour and 35 minutes. Apex is a Netflix survival thriller starring Charlize Theron as Sasha, a grieving rock climber who is hunted by a serial killer played by Taron Egerton in the Australian wilderness, with Eric Bana in a supporting role. Directed by Baltazar Kormakur, the film follows the cat-and-mouse game as Sasha uses her skills to survive the deadly hunt, which is presented as a twisted sport. So that is the overview. It received a 66% on Rotten Tomatoes. It had 6.1 out of 10 on IMDb. Again, the major themes: survival, Australian outback, kind of this twisted perversion. Hey, you know, I have this human being and I'm going to go hunt them. Not a super novel plot line in any sense. Overall, frankly, I was just not a big fan. The relationship of acting and writing is always kind of interesting to me. Common quip. You know, the acting was not convincing. The acting was bad. Can you have good acting with bad writing? I don't know. I want to say I don't think so. I don't know. Drop a comment. What do you think? But regardless, the relationship of the acting and the writing was not convincing in its totality. The relationship between the female has a husband at the beginning. That relationship is kind of goofy to begin with. The characterization of the villain's not super convincing, and then the overall writing and characterization of the lead female, it seems very trite, not inspired, and just kind of like the lower end of whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one a C-. Didn't really do anything for me, not off-putting. I did like the nature scenery, I guess would be the most positive, but music soundtrack didn't really stand out. The overall hunting cat and mouse game is not super novel. And the characterizations were not super strong. So, C-. If you've not seen the video, there will be spoiler alerts. So we open up, Sasha is on this mountain. They are in Norway, and the first kind of scene's kind of cool. They are opening one of those tents that you have if you're a rock climber and you're on the side of a mountain for a night or for a nap or for rest or for whatever. And so she's with her her husband, I think it's Eric Bana, but just a small, he's only in the movie for a brief time. He's kind of this experienced rock climber, and he's like, hey, you know, I'm getting tired of doing these epic feats. They're trying to scale this last kind of cliff face. I'm not super familiar with rock climbing, but it's like inverted, like you have to go like more than 90 degrees. And so Sasha cannot get over that, and she's like, hey, I want to summit. And he's like, hey, you know, I'm kind of done with this. You know, let's set up our little tent again and, you know, call it a day. And so she keeps wanting to go on, she can't, and then they get into a pinch. Again, I'm not sure, I don't know rock climbing, but they have those, like, they're free solo, or they're not free soloing, but they're moving up their own safety pins, whatever that's called. And so she's trying to push it, this storm comes, they get in this pinch, and he kind of gets knocked out or is unconscious, and she has to like let him go. Another type of scene that just pops into my head is Jurassic Park, when they have that big, I think it's Jurassic Park 2, the big long train and the chick's dangling there and the bag is about to fall. That type of drama, that type of presentation. And so she cuts him loose, he falls down, he dies, and then the movie, kind of the main plot starts, is she is going into the Australian outback. So that first characterization between her, I'm assuming it's her husband or her partner, I think it might just be her boyfriend, but it just wasn't convincing whatsoever. And so in comparison to the 28 years later, where we had this relationship between the mother and the son that I thought progressed in a strong fashion quickly. This was the opposite. We had a pretty weak characterization, and I almost kind of like chuckled when he fell down. It was just kind of whatever. And so also throughout the movie, there's a lot of, again, uninspired, very trite action scenes where you have, not the CGI isn't overdone, but the chick falls down. Well, I guess we'll get to it. But so she's in the Australian outback. She goes to a gas station. Some hunters kind of, lightly harass her. And then this guy, Ben, he is like, hey, he's kind of like the nice guy. You have two kind of grizzly hunters kind of roughing up their, like, making jokes or saying stuff to the female. And this guy's like, hey, I got your back. And so Sasha asks Ben for some directions. Hey, where's this campsite? Hey, what's going on with these guys? And so she kind of gets some directions and kind of goes her own way. So she pulls up to the campsite. The hunters kind of come. She kind of just, they kind of catcall her like, hey, honey, what's up? They have a couple dead deers on the back of their truck. And she just literally kind of ignores them and goes away, sets up camp. And then the next morning she wakes up and her bag is gone. And so she thinks she's hung it high enough in the tree. And then she kind of just keeps going. When she was at the gas station, Ben had given her directions and is like, hey, maybe I'll see you out there or whatever. And so she's kind of cooking breakfast, I think, or just kind of walking around, and she runs into Ben. And so she has breakfast with Ben. She doesn't finish it because he starts saying like, hey, what happened to your stuff? And then he starts, hey, what happened with, your husband or your boyfriend? He somehow had learned some information about her. But regardless, by the end of the breakfast, he leads on and it's like, hey, I'm the one that took your bag. Those hunters, I knew they were there. And so you go from Ben's kind of helping Sasha to Ben is definitely the antagonist, the not likable guy, as one of the main characters. And so from that point, Sasha's trying to get away, but then Ben just immediately, he's got a crossbow, he plays this loud song, and he's like, hey, you have till the end of this song to get away, and then I'm going to come chase you, and, you can tell that Sasha is aware that he's going to try to hunt and kill her. And so, again, the overall plot development is nothing novel. This type of theme is played out in multiple other movies. But regardless, she immediately starts running, and then the over-dramatic, trite kind of action sequences. She falls down, a very big hill. She immediately kind of hits her head, doesn't have, any sort of blasting damage from it. And so just from a director's choice, it seems kind of strange just to... Again, I'm not a stickler for it has to be super realistic. Really, when I sit down for a movie, everything starts in the B range. It just kind of has to be kind of entertaining. And so just like the choices as a director, as a writer, it's like, what are we accomplishing here? Well, it's certainly a thought as a viewer. And so we have these action sequences. She falls down kind of into this water immediately. She paddles away. She's got a kayak. And then he catches up with her immediately, kind of hunts and tries to shoot some arrows at her. She runs away again. She ends up like hiding in this cave, and he's like right over top of her, but doesn't see her. And then she quickly comes back up and sees another canoe and somebody on a rope swing. It ends up being Ben himself. But she goes down to try to get this canoe, and as she's walking over there, she hits this massive bear trap or wild animal trap that's like kind of like underwater. Ben's on this rope swing, the kayak's 100 yards away. She's trying to like sneak behind the boat or the canoe, like next to the water. So she has this huge bear trap that gets on her leg. Ben runs over. We have another fight sequence. And Ben takes this big clamp off of her ankle, and there's no damage. Not even like a limp, nothing. And so that was just another where it's like, as a director's choice, we have this huge, catastrophic, massive bear trap slam on this girl's ankle, which you would assume would be pulverized. Like they would have to like amputate her. There'd be like no bone structure left, but not even a limp. So that definitely stuck out. Again, immediately after this action sequence of her falling down this massive hill into this river. And so Ben kind of shackles her up or puts handcuffs on her and starts canoeing down the waterway. Their interactions are like, again, playful. He's definitely trying to kill her, but they're still kind of like being humans around each other, I guess, or at least that's the characterization that's tried to be presented. Again, the overall film is not very convincing for me. And so regardless, he takes her to this cave, and when she had originally gotten to Australia, and her original husband, boyfriend was Australian, so there's some tie and dialogue of like, hey, were you coming back here because of him? I didn't really follow that too well. But regardless, when she initially had gotten to Australia, there's a ranger station and there's a bunch of missing people. And so now, fast forward when they're on this kayak and he's shackled her up after this bear trap is clamped on her ankle. He takes her to this cage, and then we see this family that she had also been like, when she went to get this canoe, she had found like a phone with a family, and it was some trap or some piece of bait set by Ben. And so you see that family in this cave killed. And so there's another tussle. She's able to kind of get away from him, and then she like smashes his ankle with a rock or some other big object, but now he's kind of substantially injured. And so they had this fight scene. She's more physically apt. She's more not injured. And so, which again is just totally unbelievable after the animal trap scene. And so regardless, she's like, hey, Ben, you have this harness on you for this rock climbing. I need that harness and we can both get to safety. So now again, like that part could have, like, there could have been a more interesting angle, like where they develop again, hey, we have to work together. Again, not super new or novel, but I felt like there could have been something, but there just wasn't. And so she puts on this harness. They're trying to scale up this rock face once again to get to safety. And Ben's like, hey, if you try to do anything funny or cut me off of this line, I'm going to pull us both down and we're going to die. And so she gets kind of halfway up there. There's this tree stump, and she does try to do that. And Ben notices, yanks her back down, and is like, hey, don't do that. And so as he's like, or she doesn't fall down, but he starts yanking her. There's a traumatic, like, oh, are we going to fall scene or not? But she's able to wiggle out of this harness. The harness falls down. Ben clearly sees that and realizes, hey, you know, she can just cut me down and I'm dead immediately. And she does so. So Ben falls down, he dies. She is able to scale over this cliff. Again, this one of these faces, like the beginning of the movie when the boyfriend dies, she's able to finally like scale over that. So there's an attempt at some resolution for that, but again, what is the resolution? She conquered the wall or something? I don't know. Again, the overall plot was not a strong development for me, as I've said multiple times. But that kind of brings us to the resolution of the movie, is she gets back to the ranger station and you have some just, you know, panning out scenes and then a little bit of a narrator, a newscaster saying, you know, back in the Australian outback, we found 20 bodies in a secluded cave in this national park. And so Sasha had reported and brought closure to some other families. So overall, again, the acting to writing relationship, again, I don't know if it's bad acting or bad writing. My personal take as a movie viewer, as someone who has not written movies, would say that you can't outact bad writing. And you could certainly be, I guess you could be a bad actor for good writing. But regardless, overall, this movie did not work for me. It just didn't do anything. It wasn't off-putting. If I had to say something positive, I like the outback scenery. I like nature. The overall, like we just reviewed, apocalypse theme genre. And this kind of like, it's not apocalypse, but still just kind of, you know, the normal rules of society have broken down. Nothing novel, nothing new, but could have been definitely stronger. And that point where we go from she is being hunted to, hey, we have to work together. I felt like there was a line or something that could have happened and it just didn't. So overall, C-, didn't really do much for me. And that is what I have for Apex. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.